Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SAS Viya Release Highlight Show. My name is Tiago de Souza, and I have some fun news to share with you today. You know what time it is. We're going back to school this month, and so we have some great demos to help get you ready. Even if you're not in school, you won't want to play hooky on these. So for today's lineup, we have SAS OnDemand for academics versus SAS Viya for learners. This includes a demo of SAS Studio, SAS Visual Analytics, and how to access your Python and R code in a Jupyter notebook within SAS. Secondly, we have a software testing demo from SAS intern Boothe showing us how to keep SAS intelligent decisioning running smoothly. And finally, our user's choice segment is back. Shannon Moore will be showing us how to use our own SAS 9 code within SAS Viya. So as you can see, we do have a packed class and you're guaranteed to learn something new, which brings us to our question of the day. What's the best way you learn information? Do you learn best through books, online courses, offline classes, podcasts? Do you like self-teaching? Which is your favorite way to learn? Let me know in the chat. And while you do that, I'm going to toss it over to Kate Uveling because it is time for our first segment, the Release Talk, Back to School Edition. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Tiago. This is so timely. We go way back, alumni of the same high school.
Yes. It's we're getting close to 10 years for me. I think it's 2014 for you, right? 2013 for me. So yeah, time flies.
2015.
2015. Wow, yeah. I'm feeling pretty old now.
Go Catamounts.
Go Catamounts, for sure. So Kate, I understand you have a release talk, and this time it is back to school edition. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, first up in the release talk, we're going to hear from an old friend of mine. We've got SAS Analytical Training Consultant Rachel Nisbet on the show.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear from Rachel. And I know there's a lot of buzz about SAS OnDemand for academics versus SAS Viya for learners. I'm excited to learn more about that.
I am too. Let's get right into it. All right, Rachel, long time no see, girl. How are you doing today?
See you. I hope you're doing well as well.
Well, we are so excited to have you on the show today. So as you know, this month's show is all about back to school. So with that in mind, can you tell us a little bit more about the options that are available for students to learn more about SAS?
Of course. So SAS has two software for learning options. They're both going to be offered for free. They are browser-based, but behind the scenes, they are quite different. So we have SAS OnDemand for academics. That's what we call ODA, and that's going to be our tried and true SAS 9 software. So all the statistical power that SAS has been bringing for 40 plus years, we have it there. We also have SAS Viya for learners, and you guessed it, underneath the hood is Viya. So here's where you're going to see that really quick in-memory processing. If you're thinking about doing that more visualization and machine learning, that's where you can really go to access our suite of integrated tools. Both are really awesome options. You kind of get to just pick your poison.
Okay, that sounds great. And thank you so much for breaking down those acronyms. I know we have a lot of acronyms at SAS, so that was perfect. I was wondering if you could show us or tell us a little bit more about what you'll show us in the demo. Do I need to know SAS programming to use these things?
So first of all, you do not. In the demo, I'm going to show off both interfaces so you kind of get a feel of what each of them looks like, what tools are available in each, and SAS programming is available in both. We have our Sas Studio Interface where you can get in there, you can get your hands on a keyboard, you can do your coding, but there's also lots of drag and drop and point and click options. So if you don't want to code, you still have the ability and the access to all the analytical power. You really get to just choose. We have both in there.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Rachel. Last two questions before we jump into that demo. What type of analysis can be done? And then is this also something that you can use with open source?
Oh, I love this ending questions. So a wide range of analytics can be done. So in On Demand for Academics, since that is our SAS 9, Here, you're really going to be accessing your data. You can get in there and do a lot of hands-on data preparation. You can do your basic descriptive analyses, all the way up to that more advanced statistical methods. In Viya for Learners, you're really going to be looking at the full analytical life cycle. So you're going to be taking a look at your data through explorations and visualizations. You can really derive some of those patterns and trends, and you can kind of take those trends into more of the forecasting aspects, the model building, and testing out those models to make sure that they are deployable and ready to be used out in the real world. And you asked about open source because that is a very complementary tool, and we have it accessible in both. So through On-Demand for Academics, you can configure it actually with your local install of Python. And with Viya for Learners, as one of those integrated suite of tools that we offer is Jupyter Lab. So you can hop in there, you can create your Jupyter notebook, either using Python or R or SAS, and build out this really robust notebook leading you through teaching and learning of either of those coding programs.
Well, thank you so much. This was so helpful for me. And of course, to our listeners, you were the perfect fit for our back to school edition of this show. And let's get right on into the demo.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started with SAS OnDemand for Academics. So SAS Studio is our newest programming interface. So again, it's just launching in a web browser here for us. As it comes up, we're going to notice two different parts of our screen. So we have our big old canvas here. This is where the magic happens. This is where we're going to get to do our coding, see our results, use our point and click tasks. But before we get to that, let me show you around the sidebar. So our top bar here is our server files and folders. This is where you can upload your own data, and you can work with lots of different data sets and programs, save whatever you would like to your own personal storage. We also have our tasks and utilities, which are those point and click ways to walk yourself through building out some SAS coding without having to do typing yourself. You have snippets. This is where you can use saved bits of code and then just drop in, type in whatever data set you want to work with. We also have our libraries. That's where we're going to get to store many of our data sets for quick access. And then our shortcuts. I'm going to go ahead and type out a short little program here so we can take a look at what that canvas offers us. No worries if you do not know the SAS programming language. I'm just going to go ahead and type in a quick little step here. This is one of our favorite things to do, just to display a data set that's available to us. I've typed up a quick little program here, and I can go ahead and click our running man, and we notice that our results get displayed right here within our canvas. So we see a nice little printout, a nice display of all the columns and rows available to us in the data set that I chose. Again, if I didn't want to do any programming, I can go over to my tasks and utilities. This has a whole bunch of tasks, everything from data to graphing to statistics. A lot of different tasks available to you. And as you drill down, maybe in the data tasks, I want to be able to filter my data. So when I double click this is going to open up my task window here. Under data, I can select the data set I want using a nice little point and click access. I'll choose that SAS cars. I can say I want to do our first filter on a variable. I'll click the plus button and I'll say make, and I'll say I want my make to be equal to, and we'll choose the Audi cars. Notice that my code is being filled out on my side pane. I didn't have to do any of that coding. I just had to reference things in my task. Now, when I run this, it's going to run just like a normal SAS program. And I notice that I now have filtered my original data set to only cars with the make of Audi. Pretty cool, right? While it's still fresh in our minds, I'm going to take you through SAS Viya for Learners, just so that you can see how similar the two interfaces are. I can do this through my Applications menu and opening up Develop SAS Code. So again, this is just SAS Studio behind the scenes, and you'll notice pretty similar, right? We have our start page, which is the placeholder for our canvas here. But if we click this plus button, we have an open program. We also see that we have in our File Explorer, we have all of that SAS content. So the resources are available too here in SAS Studio. Running the same test, a little proc print, just typing out code that we want to use. Just to show, this looks very similar to SAS OnDemand for academics. So we run it, and we get that same exact output. Looks slightly different, but it's similar enough that you could probably use either one interchangeably and still get the same thing done. Have the same tasks and snippets, so let's look at those just to verify. Here under our SAS tasks, we have many of the same ones. They might have slightly different names, but we're still able to do things like filtering our data. We saw that task over there in SAS OnDemand for academics. It's going to look almost exactly the same here, where we select the data set that we want to work with. We'll find SAS help and then our cars. We can decide that we want to filter on that make, want it to be equal to Audi, and our code is generated. And just like that, we can click our running man, and it's going to produce those outputs for us. So now we see we've filtered our data set to only show the cars that have a make of Audi. So SAS Studio, pretty similar in the two. So what's the difference here? Well, now that we're on SAS Viya for Learners, we have that integrated suite of tools. Going back to the Applications menu, I can go into Explore and Visualize. This is our SAS Visual Analytics interface. So by default, it's going to open up and say, hey, do you want to start with a report that you've already accessed, maybe from any of our courses, that preloaded data that's already available at our fingertips? Or maybe we just want to start with our own data set. So I'll go ahead and say start with data, just so that we can see there are so many data sets here and available for us. Maybe they're not aligned with the course, or they don't have a starter report with them, but they are still available for us to use. So I'll go ahead and come in here and I'll find one of my favorite data sets, the Heart data set. We can see some details before we even bring it into our report, and then once we bring it in, we notice that all of the variables are available to us on the side. We want to get going with our analysis really quickly, so I'll just go ahead and start selecting some. Maybe I'll choose blood pressure status and age at death. So I'll go ahead and bring those over, and we'll notice there's a big auto chart button here telling us that SAS is going to choose the best chart for these two data items. And so we can see for each of our blood pressure statuses, high, normal, and optimal, we see our age at death. This doesn't really make sense, so we might need to do some data prep. We can do this right here within our report. Going back into our data pane, that's how we make those edits. I'm going to change the age at death to an aggregation of average. By default, it's going to be sum, but that's going to give us some really strange age at deaths when we start putting our data together. When I change it to average, we see our chart was updated. And now this makes a little bit more sense. On average, for people with high blood pressure status, have an age of 70.95, with normal 70.286, and then optimal 68.66. Wow, we're seeing some relationships right here just with a few clicks, drags, and drops. We can also choose what object we want by going to our Objects pane and selecting one of our table values, one of our graph values. We can even do geomaps, controls for user inputs, and some higher analytics like forecasting and text topics. Scrolling all the way down to the bottom, we also see that Visual Analytics includes SAS Visual Statistics, which lets us do clustering and regressions, and SAS Visual Data Mining and Machine Learning, where we can do some of those forests, gradient boosting. Lots of options here, just in SAS Visual Analytics. The last thing I want to show off is Jupyter Lab. So Jupyter Lab is not a SAS technology, but it's integrated right here within SAS Viya for Learners for ease of access. Going down to this little bottom bar, we see Jupyter. We'll go ahead and click, which is going to open it up in a new browser tab. We see we have all of our courses available, all that preloaded data, and I already have two open just to show off what Jupyter Lab can do for us. We see some headers here, we see text, and we have code blocks. So this is a Python 3 notebook. So we're in SAS Viya for Learners, but we're doing Python. We can also see an R demo where we're using the R kernel, we're using R code, we're still in SAS Viya for Learners. So these Jupyter Lab integration is so big, allowing you to do your open source coding from the same resource. So you never have to leave SAS Viya for Learners, no matter what you're trying to accomplish.
All right, great demo, and thank you for sharing all of these updates, Rachel.
Of course, it was my pleasure, really.
We will be on the lookout for more to come, of course. Now, let's take it back a week ago when I got a chance to catch up with intern extraordinaire Dee Boothe. Dee, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we are thrilled to have you on the show today. I was wondering if we could just start this out by having you tell us a little bit about your internship experience.
All right. I am a United in STEM intern. I am a technical intern. I work with the decisioning department, and it's just been great. At first, I didn't really know much about SAS until after getting out of the military. I got a veteran mentor, and he worked at SAS, and he was just pushing me to be around like creative minds and to help me make connections here and learning about the people here and what SAS does and what it has to offer. I I just had to start working here, and it's been great.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. So glad that mentor pulled you in. Yeah, thank you for your service. Thank you for being here. And I was wondering if you could kick us off by telling us what intelligent decisioning is.
So intelligent decisioning is a product that allows business knowledgeable individuals on like how the operation of their business works, that they can create custom code that they can then put in any executable environment. Um, so even if you don't really know how to program, it allows you to put in like the workflows and the rule sets that you would probably be using to make a decision in your company, and then providing and then allowing it to be published as code that you can use that logic anywhere that may be needed. So just like how a bank may have a certain way of approving a loan, if you understand the rules and what's accepted to approve someone for that loan, you can make that into code and use that logic where you'd want to use that in any of your products.
Okay, great. I appreciate you breaking that whole thing down. So also, Dee, what makes software testing so important, whether it be for SAS or our customers?
So towards our customers, being able to make sure and assure that you're giving them the best possible product, I think it will go an extremely long way. It wants to make sure that your experience with the service is as easy as possible and you get what you need to be done. And it lets you know that we care about your needs as a company and that we need to make sure that you're getting everything that you need. So we can build that trust up between customer and company.
Okay, great. That's super helpful. So what will you be showing us in your demo today?
So my project for this summer was to automate the process that we do for manual testing for some intelligent decisioning command line interfaces and their plugins. Um, I've been working with the manual tester to see what steps are needed to be able to recreate those steps, and then just press a button and have those tests run, and then we can see the results right away. Actually, let me show you. With one of the first CLIs that we have 5, the DCM transfer, the decision get deploy, the score execution, RTDM object migration, and also SID functions. Because of the many steps that are taken with authenticating and whatnot, we try to bypass all of that and be able just to press a button and run all the tests that's needed. With the DCM transfer, we're going to check what the latest version is because we test out the new experimental versions, and then we actually run the process that it takes just to make sure everything is working in proper order. And like that, it's done the whole process, and it lets me know that the tests have passed and we can continue on to a different one. We have 5 CLIs in total that we check. Next would be the decision get deploy. It goes through authenticating. It shows me the output that you'd normally see on the CLI, and it makes me know if anything has failed, if it doesn't work. For example, right here, I tried to deploy a file to our CAS, and it tells me that it didn't work because a certain model table hasn't been created. As these tests are running, and after they have ran, it will let me know what occurred by giving me a report, what version of Via ran and on what system, and it continues to tell me what command was used to run that process. The report so far has shown me how it runs with the Via 4 environment. I can change this to the Via 3 environment with the scripts that I've written for that. Then it collects all the tests that I've ran, checks the version that's running, and then begins the process. Pass lets me know it's passed, and just as it's ran in that Via 3 environment, if I go and check that same report, it's been updated. It updates it with the new information of the Via 3.5 release. So just like how it works in a Windows environment, we can do the exact same thing in a lax environment. For our score execution function, we're looking in a Via 4 environment, but running it on a lax OS. It's again showing you the version that's running, and now it's collecting the hanging resources that might be on the end server that it's reaching out to. Right now, there are no hanging resources. It lets me know, and then it tries to see if it can remove any hanging resources if there were any. It's passed because, well, there's no hanging resources, so it doesn't need to remove any. It does the exact same thing for the 3.5 release. Just like that, it lets me know there's no hanging resources found, and it continues. So this test is specifically for the plugin CLI, which only runs on the Via 4 environment. It's my favorite one because it allows anyone to start testing and using these tests. I have the 5 CLIs that are used already installed, but within my test, you can upgrade, or you can actually download these tests, these CLIs, and you can download these CLIs, you can upgrade them, because as a manual tester, you have to try and make sure the new release that's been updated or created actually works. So right now it's going to tell me that I've already had these installed, but if I went ahead and said to download the 5 specific CLIs, it should go ahead and find that test. And from a specific repository for the experimental CLIs, it'll go ahead and tell me that, hey, we tried installing this, but you already have it and it's already up to date. As I said, we come up with new releases of each of the CLIs. So along with being able just to download this straight off the gate, another aspect that I love and the manual tester I've been working with, he's very excited about, is that I can also check for new versions from all the CLIs that I currently have installed. And then it'll tell me that there's no upgrades available or there are a few upgrades available. And if there was any, I could go ahead and run the test case and where it can go ahead and upgrade them. On top of that, I also have tests for if you don't have the repository to collect all this, because that is part of installing the plugins. The test that I have allows you to check if you have the repository already installed. If you don't, then it goes ahead and adds it for you. So it's just as easy as 1, 2, 3. It'll do everything for you.
Dee, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we are once again just so thrilled to have you here this summer.
And thank you for having me once again, and I appreciate it. I love working here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, Tiago, we'll toss it back to you.
Thank you, Kate. Again, that was Rachel Nisbet and Dee Boothe with our back to school edition of the Release Talk. So earlier today, I asked you our question of the day: what's the best way you learn new information? Let's see what some of you said. Sandeep said that they're taking in-person SAS classes in Mumbai. Delisa says that they're using online courses. Very different ways, and it's good to know that SAS does offer both ways of learning our products. Now, moving right along with the curriculum, it is time for the User's Choice segment. This month, we've invited on Shannon Moore due to his involvement and dedication to SAS Users Group. Shannon just attended the Minnesota SAS Users Group Conference, where he did some presentations and demos. He was also at PharmaSug in Austin, Texas earlier this spring, where he interacted with users there. He's even doing a free Ask the Expert webinar on how to build a report in SAS Visual Analytics, literally right after the show at the top of the hour. So it's safe to say that Shannon is the perfect pick for our User's Choice segment today. So let's let our substitute teacher take over the class for now. Get ready to take notes. Here's Shannon Moore.
Hello and welcome to today's session. We're going to talk about using Excel with Viya, and we're going to be using SAS Studio on the latest version of Viya. My name is Shannon Moore. I'm a systems engineer in customer success, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I showed at the Minnesota SAS User Group meeting. So first and foremost, I want to point out that I'm using SAS Viya 2022.1.3, and I am running an application, a progressive web app that is talking back to a Linux server. So a very common implementation that I've seen out there of folks using Viya. So one of the things I do want to talk about is the new ODS Excel destination. This is pretty exciting because this allows people to write directly to Excel files. And you may have done it in the past using the TagSets Excel. And this is replacing that. So rather than watch me type, I'll just go ahead and open some programs and talk a little bit about what's going on. So there are different options when you work with ODS Excel. You may have used ODS HTML or ODS PDF in the past, and this is the next generation of Excel and ODS destinations. So the first thing I'll point out here is it's very simple. You open the destination. I'm using a file statement, and this path is actually pointing to a spreadsheet that I'm going to create on my Linux file system. I've got an option statement here, as well as another option statement to change the sheet name And you can use different styles if you want to. So let me go ahead and delete that just to go ahead and start from scratch a little bit here. So the way Excel destinations, as well as any ODS destination, works is you open the destination, you run some procedures or data steps, it writes that information to the file, and then you need to close that destination to look at it. So I'll just go ahead and run this real quick. So we can see there's a table. So I'm using the SAS Help class dataset because it's readily available for anyone else that wants to try this after viewing this. The log looks good. I also want to point out, if you're a longtime SAS user, these notes and this log should look extremely familiar, and that's because Viya understands when you are using SAS 9 constructs or SAS 9 procedures and goes ahead and runs it on what we call the SAS compute engine. You can also run the procedures like print and like sgplot, but print in particular has been rewritten that can also run using CAS actions. But today's session is really talking about using 9.4 style code in Viya. So a couple things to note: it ran successfully. There's my Excel spreadsheet. So I am using client server, so it's going to ask, hey, we created this up on the Linux box, but how can I see this? So essentially I just double clicked to download it, and then I'm just going to open it using my local Excel, and we can take a quick look, see as to what was done. So a couple things to note here: there's the name of that sheet that I had given it in the options. Here's the table, and then beneath it we've got the graphic. To go back to the code real quick and point out, by using sheet interval none, I was able to put all of the items that show up, like the different print, the sgplot, I could have data step and so on, all on the same sheet. If I don't use sheet interval, it'll go ahead and throw those on different sheets. And obviously using something called sheet underscore name goes ahead and lets me create a spreadsheet with a name. All right, so that's a real basic example, right? We just open it up, used a file statement, pointing to a location, giving it the file name with the extension. So let's go ahead and open up my second one. So what this example is going to show is maybe a little bit more complex flow here or program. Go ahead and clean up with my title footnote statement. I've got a data step. I'm using a Proc summary to create an output data set. But where it gets interesting as far as talking about the destination here is I'm actually going to be using some inline style statements as part of my Proc print. So I call this output data set I created, and then if we look at this var line here with difference past the slash, I'm going to change a style attribute, and what I want to do is essentially format it using dollars and cents, and then go one step further and format if the number is negative to go ahead and apply the kind of standard Excel or finance look and feel that you're going to have red numbers that show negative numbers. And go ahead and close the file out here. Again, happens pretty quick because it's a smallish data set that I'm working with here. You'll notice there is no format applied here because that's an Excel formula that I'm passing to it. You'll also notice that I did get this second spreadsheet, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at that one. And there it is. So we can see right now that small table that was created here, and then the negative numbers are shown in red. Go ahead and close both of these out here. Take another quick look at some inline formatting that's available to you using another very popular procedure, Proc report. And what's interesting is we start looking at the defined statements in the Proc report. So what I'm saying is for age, I want the style of the header to be light green. For the gender or sex, I want the style to be light yellow, and I essentially want it to go across both values. And you'll see this when I have this output. Similarly, changing light blue and light orange. Now I am using what I like to say plain English descriptions, but you could actually put in hex numbers if you had very specific numbers that you wanted to work with. So this one, it does actually show up as opposed to the last one with the numbering being red. So we can see that looks pretty good. And then again, very quickly, it's created that Excel spreadsheet here. I can take a quick look at it to see what it looks like in Excel. So this is just really scratching the surface. There's extensive documentation that talks about the new ODS Excel destination. But I want to show two more things, and then I'll let you get back to your day. And I want to talk about the live name engine, the XLSX live name engine. So what's nice about this is essentially it can take a spreadsheet and have it behave, if you will, like a SAS library. So I'm going to go ahead and create the library. So I'm going to highlight here rather than run the whole program. Again, it looks like it ran great. I've got my note saying it was assigned. I'm going to pop over here on look at my different libraries. You can tell this is a Viya instance because I've got a mixture of both Viya CAS libs, which have the cloud with the snowflake, and the one I just created. And then there's that spreadsheet. And this is what I mean by behaves like a SAS data set. I've got all of those different columns are available to me. So once I've used that live name engine, I can go ahead and run different procedures against it and so on. And what's nice about this is this bypasses any need to use Microsoft APIs at on the behind the scenes, excuse me. So essentially, it's using SAS engine completely. So it makes it very, very, very portable, I guess is the best thing about it. Go back to the code here again. And here I'm going to call this library. And when I give it a new member, this is actually going to create a spreadsheet in that, a new spreadsheet in that same workbook. So I'll go ahead and run this. Again, successful, same notes, and you can see that it was written to that. And now you can see right here, I've got that one called new, and these are all the different columns for that table. And we'll go ahead and just finish up here once and talk about using Proc export. It's very easy to do an export using the XLS XDBMS as your output data type here. Again, using an out file statement here. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and tell it which sheet I want to export. So let me go ahead and highlight the whole thing. There we go. So it did export that to that. You probably also notice that you're seeing some backup files show up here. If I wanted to from the code, I could use the replace option and it wouldn't create that backup. But I always like to keep the backup around just in case I want to double check my output. So what I was trying to show here in this quick demonstration is that SAS 9.4 style code, foundation code, continues to be updated. It runs within your Viya instance. Everything that I've been showing here, I've been using a Viya backend, actually the latest and greatest version. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about ODS Excel replacing the tagsets.xlxp destination, the XLS engine, a live name engine, which essentially allows you to go ahead and have a spreadsheet treated like a SAS data set. And then, of course, to talk about using Proc export to go ahead and give you another option to create Excel. Thank you.
Perfect. Again, that was our own Shannon Moore. If you would like to learn more from Shannon, he's presenting a free Ask the Expert webinar titled How Do I Build a Report in SAS Visual Analytics on SAS Viya? This webinar is literally starting in about 20 minutes, so very, very soon. Check out our resources for a link to that. Now, sadly, ladies and gentlemen, the show is over, but next month we will hang out again and talk with more SAS people about what's new in the SAS world. For your homework, you can subscribe to the SAS Users YouTube channel and get notified when we go live for our next show on September 20th. There was already a link up for the September show, so just click the Notify Me button for that. But until then, I've been your teacher, Tiago de Souza. Keep those grades up, and I will see you next month. Class dismissed.